finally worked. Good afternoon. I want to remind you that these bills passed by for the day at this point may not be rescheduled, but before we get into any further business, I'd like to have the roll call.
Senator Locke. Here. Senator Deeds.
Here.
Senator McDougal. Senator Lucas.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Today's bills have no public comment, so we're going to just jump right into the calendar. And here comes Senator McDougal. As you might imagine, Senator Aaron Rouse signed up first. Please join us at the microphone.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for hearing Bill 212 today. And I want to thank you, Senator Lucas and Senator French, who's also here for co-patroning this bill, my legislation to regulate and tax skill games. Senate Bill 212 is a bill with bipartisan support that will help the most vulnerable small businesses in our Commonwealth, including many owned by first-generation Americans. The coalition, and Madam Chair, I know we're not taking public testimony, but if the coalition could just stand up and all in the back. The coalition supporting this legislation represent at least 7,000 small businesses in our Commonwealth, and each of those businesses employs hard-working Virginians and serve countless customers every day. You all set up. Good job. Good job. Simply put, a vote to regulate, tax, and enforce skill games is a vote to support these small businesses. It's also a vote to bring an additional $200 million or more in new revenue to the Commonwealth annually that will help fund our key priorities. With that, I would like to detail the substitute today, which makes several adjustments.
Let's get a motion on the substitute first.
Substitute. Second.
It's been moved and second that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor of the substitute, please say aye. Aye. Substitute is agreed to. Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During a prior committee hearing, which had a thorough vetting, a number of issues were raised that I felt were important to address. This substitute adjusts the allowable age to play skill games from 18 to 21. Mm-hmm. While this is not consistent with lottery, we feel that this is a reasonable compromise. It also creates a Class 1 misdemeanor for any establishment knowingly or willingly allows a person under the age of 21 to play a skill game or redeem winnings. Additionally, it requires enhanced background check provisions for all applicants for a skill game registration. And to address the concerns about reporting of tax revenue, this substitute provides for an enhanced record keeping and reporting. Specifically, it requires the distributor and operator to maintain separate records for 2 years of all skill game revenues and play activity that can be made available for inspection and audit. And it includes bonding requirements for distributors and operators to ensure that the Commonwealth can recover any revenues if issues arise. Next, the substitute increases the tax rate from 15% to 22%. And as this moves forward, I hope to see the rate lowered to be more consistent with other forms of gaming in Virginia and more appropriate for the small businesses that will host skill games. This substitute also ensures that local law enforcement agencies responsible for enforcing skill games receive a portion of the revenues. And finally, the substitute allows for the ABC to get the skill games program up and running and then transitions the regulatory agency from the ABC to the Virginia Lottery. And this is the policy issue I look forward to continuing to work on as it moves through the process. And as I stated in our initial press conference, this is a small business skill games bill. And since the ban on skill games took effect, small businesses around the Commonwealth are hurting. And I look forward to continue working with my colleagues across the aisle and throughout our General Assembly to get this passed. And Madam Chair, that is the bill before you.
Thank you, Senator Rouse. Senator Deeds has a question of staff.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I just have one question of staff. The substitute we adopted is the committee substitute. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, that's correct.
Okay, and that's has a 22, it taxes the games at 22%. 75% of the money goes to K through 12. There's a 15,000 machine cap statewide.
Senator Deeds, that's correct.
Okay, then I move to report.
Second. Senator Dees, does that complete your question, or do you want staff to enumerate further on that?
I'm fine, thank you.
Senator French, your name's on the bill.
I'd just like to echo what Senator Rouse said, and I think this is a small business bill in my community, and I know it's a skill game, but it allows these business owners to stay open longer, pay their help better, be great citizens in our communities. And when I get a phone call in the morning that my cattle are out somewhere, and I go get those cows in, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I like those lights on to stop and get a cup of coffee, just like our construction workers do to go to Northern Virginia to work. A lot of them stop at these convenience stores. They're the backbone of our small communities. So it means a lot to us.
Thank you, Senator French. Turning to the committee, any further questions, response, motion?
Move to report.
It's been moved and second that the bill, and that is Senate Bill 212, with the substitute, be reported. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Your bill is reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next bill, 448.
Senator Rouse, your next bill also has a committee substitute, so can I get a motion on the substitute? It's been moved and second that the committee substitute be agreed to. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
We're on Bill 448, is that correct, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
you are on Senate Bill 448, and that is your cannabis bill, Senator
Yes, ma'am.
Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the members of the subcommittee know, in 2021, the General Assembly legalized the growing, possession, consumption, and sharing of marijuana. However, we have been slow to create and regulate an adult use market to allow for the legal sale of marijuana. And regardless of where you stand on the marijuana legalization, we can all agree that we are never going to recriminalize marijuana. Therefore, it's up to us to finally create a well-regulated adult use market. So 448 does all these things while ensuring that our adult use market is well-regulated, it provides opportunities for equal access, does justice to communities ravaged by poverty and prior drug policy, it generates tax revenue, and protects our communities. SB 448 ensures that fair participation, and in this bill, no one applicant is preferred over another, and there are also no head starts. SB 448 is the only option to prevent multi-state operators from monopolizing the market and ensure that all licenses have an equal and meaningful opportunity to participate in this market on day one. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would like for staff to describe the committee substitute, if you don't mind.
Madam Chair, the committee substitute really applies to the tax rate applied. It applies a 12.5% state excise tax on marijuana, 3.5% local optional excise tax. It applies the retail sales and use tax, but only the K-12 portion of the retail sales and use tax, so that is 1.1 1/8%, which is effectively a statewide tax rate of 17% approximately.
Any questions of members of the committee? Senator Rouse, response? You
The bill is
good?
before you, Madam Chair.
Hearing no questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator McDougal?
Madam Chairman, I know this bill has gone through a lot of different committees, and one of them was courts. And I think there were some different views in the world about penalties in courts. I think in courts, the penalties were placed the same amount for possession of alcohol or the illegal distribution or sale of alcohol. Where does this bill have those now?
Senator
Madam
Rouse, you want to respond, or would you like for committee to go?
Like for committee response.
But I'd like for the committee attorney.
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal. Yeah, the changes in courts were made in 4.1-1103 for the illegal sales. When we aligned those provisions with the ABC provisions, it turned it into a legal sale being a class 1 misdemeanor, and I believe there was a 30-day mandatory minimum for second and subsequent offenses. This substitute takes it back to how the penalties were before. Your first offense would be a class 2, second offense would be a class 1, and there is no mandatory minimum.
Madam Chairman Cass.
Senator McDougal?
So, Mr. Mays, if I understand now, if you illegally sell marijuana, the penalty is less than if you illegally sell alcohol to a minor under this version.
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, that'd be correct.
Madam Chair,
Senator Deeds?
I don't think, on alcohol, it's not a second offense of a sale to a minor, it's just second offense of an illegal sale by an unlicensed person. There is a minimum mandatory 30-day jail sentence. Is that right? I think that's what the code says. If you, in other words, if you have a nip joint or something on the second offense, you got 30 days in jail.
I haven't heard nip joint in a long time.
Where you been? Where's she been?
Not near nip joint. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Senator Locke?
I move to report Senate Bill 448, amendment, the substitute.
Second.
It has been moved and second that Senate Bill 448 with the substitute be agreed to, be reported. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Aye? Report your no. Senator Rouse?
Madam Chair.
2 out of 3. You got one more to go.
Yes, so we have
Senate Bill.
one more to go, yes. Yes, we have one more to go. That is correct. You are always
one,
correct,
right?
Madam Chair. I have before you SB 678. And Madam Chair, I am very, very proud to carry this bill along with the other bills that I carried. But this bill potentially hits home on a more personal level. SB 678 was drafted in collaboration, and it pains me to say this, by the way, with the University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, VCU, JMU, ODU, and Liberty University to ensure that the Virginia student athletes and institutions are protected with regard to the NIL or name, image, and likeness, and that Virginia institutes remain competitive. This legislation will provide Virginia student athletes and institutions a significant competitive advantage, and acting now allows Virginia institutions opportunity to establish the most appropriate infrastructure to maximize benefits to each sport and all student athletes. The current NCAA rules prevent institutions from compensating student athletes for their NIL. These rules have empowered collectives to become very influential in the intercollegiate athletics. Unfortunately, not all collectives are providing NIL opportunities and or services to student athletes in an equitable or thoughtful manner consistent with the values of the institution. And if institutions are permitted to better engage in NIL activities and permitted to compensate student athletes for their NIL, they can ensure opportunities are equitable, compliant, and with the Title IX and more accessible for all student athletes. And that is the bill before you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Senator Rouse. Any questions of members of the committee? Senator Locke?
Madam Chair, Senator Rouse, do you have any idea of what the impact of this legislation would be on student athletic fees?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have experts here, but I'm not sure we're not taking expert witness. But it's my understanding that this will allow the colleges to better help student athletes when it pertains to comes to NIL, so they don't be taken advantage of, and it also ensures that they set up proper structures to handle the name and image likeness when it's pertaining to potential sponsorships. If that answers your question.
Senator Locke? Senator Deeds.
But Madam Chair and Senator Rouse, the money has to come from somewhere. Don't you
Absolutely.
think that this could affect the fee that students pay for athletics at these public colleges and universities?
When you say fee, can you clarify the fee?
Well, a student athletic fee. I mean, you know, as the senator knows, the institution that's in the district I represent, the public institutions, University of Virginia, and I hear more about the student athletic fee from parents that are upset and mad than I hear about tuition or room and board. And don't you think that this is likely to put these institutions in a position of raising that fee even more?
No, I don't. All this does is catching up with the other major conferences have done to really protect our student athletes. The fees in particular have not been an interest of concern. What this is trying to do is make sure that the universities can be in a position to protect student athletes when it comes to using their name, image, and likeness, and when it comes to procurement of sponsorship, potential sponsorship as well. And then what it does, it helps set that equal across the board. The student fees have not been an area of concern. It's just more of a protective situation where universities can be in a position to help set that structure when it comes to NIL. And we do have an expert witness here who would be probably better at answering that. What would you like to hear from him?
I'm sorry, but in this committee, we will not receive any other witnesses to speak. Now we'll turn it to the committee for any other responses or motion. Senator McDougal.
Madam Chairman, I think maybe it's because Senator Deeds and I have gray hair that we remember some of these issues, and I think the concern Senator Deeds expresses are some institutions have raised student fees in order to deal with athletics, and that puts a tremendous burden on some students who don't have the financial ability to pay for it. And the concern is, what restrictions would there be on universities for using those student fees in order to pay some of these, some of the NIL compensation to the athletes? And so, Madam Chairman, my comfort level would be, I think that Senator Rouse is correct, that this is something we're going to have to deal with and come up with a solution. I just am concerned that we don't have the guardrails in on what institutions can use in order to fund those at this current time. And maybe we should take a little additional look at this. And if I recall correctly, Madam Chairman, you might have been involved in setting up the Intercollegiate Athletic Review Commission at some point in time.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, if I can respond.
Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things I will say is, when it comes to student fees as well, what this legislation will do is just provide a more infrastructure to maximize that benefit. So when it comes to fees across all sports, and so, we know football and basketball are typically top, revenue generating sports. And what that would do is try to make sure that it maximizes when it comes to those fees across the board that you are referring to as well. But it allows the institutions to be in a position to do that, so they don't have to continuously raise fees. So, for example, you may have seen other, and I hate to bring other schools out, but especially Ohio State Buckeyes, where they were able to facilitate vehicles and things of that nature to their players. Well, some of that money, and this what this legislation attempts to do, is spread that benefit across the board when it pertains to those fees, so no one sport is getting hit too hard.
Madam Chair,
Senator Deeds.
From what I've seen on TV, what's driving sports now at Virginia Tech is women's basketball. They sell that place out all the time.
They do.
But I am
pretty
concerned
good.
this legislation doesn't have the guardrails that Senator McDougal was talking about, and might put pressure on schools to raise fees. And accordingly, I'd move to carry the bill over, refer it to the Intercollegiate Athletics Review Commission to look at its impact on student athletic fees.
Well, Madam Chair,
You heard the motion and a second, but Senator Rouse, I'll
last
go
word.
to you before,
Last
for the
words.
last word.
Yeah,
before
so
we
two for
move the
three.
motion.
What I will say is, I really appreciate setting up those guardrails, but the state of Virginia, we're already behind when it comes to other conferences and trying to make sure we can not only have our university in a position to protect our student athletes as well, and those are student athletes across the board. Senator, Dees, you're very intelligent, lawyer from a big city. So what I would say is I'll be happy to accept a friendly amendment, if you will, on this bill to allow this bill to go forward. There's really no time to waste in terms of protecting our student athlete and keeping our schools competitive.
Spoken like a true athlete. There is a motion and a second on the floor, and there is no substitute motion. So we'll move on that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Thank you so much.
Looks like I'll be sending it to a commission.
Yes, thank you so much,
Senator
Madam
Roush, you
Chair.
did well today.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much
very
to the
welcome.
members of the committee. Thank you.
Staff can give a quick description of each bill, and then patrons can add to the design. Oh, and if you would like to we'll suspend just for about 2 or 3 minutes until those who would like to leave the room. Bobby, I see you standing, so.
He's got a good point.
Thank you all for coming.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, 1300. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, 1300. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, 1300. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, 1300. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, 1300.
Afternoon, we're back. I saw one large crowd leave, and I came back and there was a different crowd. So welcome. But I just want to let you all know that we're not hearing the arena bill today. We will post it on the agenda as soon as a final meeting has been decided. The following bills will be passed by for the day, and that's Senate Bill 220, Senator Favola, Senate Bill 435, Senator Suderline, and my bill, Senate Bill 627. So I would like for staff to give a quick description of each bill, and then patrons can add to the descriptions accordingly. Next up, we're doing some K-12 bills that will be blocked. I will ask Tyler to describe. And here he comes.
Madam Chair, members, we have several bills related to education funding related to the JLARC SOQ study from this last summer. The first bill is Senate Bill 609, related to Senator Ayers, related to the creation and establishment of an at-risk add-on program. This is a JLARC recommendation. Madam Chair, I believe the recommendation from you is to incorporate this into Senate Bill 105.
It's been moved. It has been moved and second that Senate Bill 609 be incorporated into Senate Bill 105, and that is the motion. And a second. And so all in favor, please say aye. Tyler.
Madam Chair, the next bill is Senate Bill 227, Senator Hashmi. This is also related to the JLARC study. This is the broadest of the JLARC bills related to the recommendations from JLARC. Madam Chair, the recommendation is also to incorporate this into Senate Bill 105.
It's moved and second that Senate Bill 227 be also incorporated into Senate Bill 105. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right.
Okay. Madam Chair, the next bill, Senate Bill 228, Senator Hashmi, also relates to JLARC recommendations. These JLARC recommendations are focused on funding for English language learners and children with disabilities. The recommendation from you, Madam Chair, is to incorporate this into Senate Bill 105.
It has been moved and second that Senate Bill 228 be incorporated into Senate Bill 105. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. The bill is incorporated.
Okay. Madam Chair, the next bill, Senate Bill 187, Senator Subramaniam, also is related to special education staffing standards, which is something that the K-12 funding subcommittee is also going to evaluate based on the JLARC SOQ study and their previous special education study. The recommendation is to incorporate that into Senate Bill 105.
It has been moved and second that Senate Bill 187 also be incorporated into Senate Bill 105. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. The bill is incorporated.
Madam Chair, the next bill is Senate Bill 127, Senator Van Valkenburg. This relates to school counselors and all other public school staffing ratios, including specialized student support positions. Since this is looking at staffing and there's the K-12 funding joint subcommittee that will be looking at that in conjunction with the JLARC report, the recommendation is to incorporate that into Senate Bill 105.
It has been moved and second that the bill be incorporated into Senate Bill 105. All in favor say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. The bill is incorporated.
Madam Chair, the next bill is Senate Bill 128, Senator Van Valkenburg. This also relates to the JLARC study on the standards of quality funding calculations. The recommendation is to incorporate that into Senate Bill 105.
So moved.
It has been moved and second that the bill be incorporated, that is Senate Bill 128 be incorporated into Senate Bill 105. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. The bill is incorporated.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that procedural. So now we get to Senate Bill 105. Madam Chair, this is your bill, and we have a committee substitute.
I move we adopt the substitute.
There's a motion and a second that the committee substitute be adopted. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. Tyler, if you can explain now to us what incorporating all those bills into Senate Bill 105 means in terms of the omnibus education bill.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is an omnibus education bill to evaluate the JLARC recommendations from the past summer and other K-12 education initiatives. The first one, Madam Chair, is to provide targeted support for teachers getting nationally board certified if they are teaching in a Title I school. This would support the fees for that certification. Madam Chair, it establishes the at-risk add-on program and code, which is a JLARC recommendation and was from Senator Aird's bill. And then it directs that this at-risk add-on program would be initially funded in the next biennial budget as the joint subcommittee works on figuring out the per pupil amount and the variable rate, as well as the identified student percentages as JLARC recommended. It would also gather expenditure data on English language learners to determine a future funding formula change related to best supporting those students. And then, Madam Chair, it would also direct DOE to conduct a study of special education staffing needs to get a better understanding of the staffing needs as the joint subcommittee evaluates the K-12 funding formula and staffing ratios going forward. Madam Chair, I will also ask Wendy if I missed any of major pieces in the omnibus bill.
We'll turn our attention to Wendy.
No, I believe that Tyler covered all of it. Thank you, Tyler.
Senator McDougal.
Madam Chairman, I'm assuming, because there's a lot of pieces coming together, we don't yet have the physical bill. We won't have that till a little bit later.
That is correct.
Madam Chairman, but if I am understanding what was said correctly, this in large part includes your original version of your bill, which was focused on making sure that teachers that achieve that higher certification get a higher yearly compensation. Thus, we're really focusing on making sure high-performing teachers are being compensated at a higher level. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Senator McDougal.
Okay. And Madam Chairman, if I'm trying to understand the targeted support is, those are also for teachers in more challenging areas as well. And I think, Madam Chairman, you had a bill that did something similar to this last year.
I did indeed.
That the Senate was wise enough to pass, and our friends down the hall were maybe not wise enough to pass.
That is also correct.
Okay. And Madam Chairman, if I'm understanding the rest of, that's where the expenditure of money comes, and then the remaining items are in place for us to get a better handle as we go through the budget process to see where we need to spend resources. Is that a fair understanding?
You're a good lawyer.
Okay. Well, Reagan tells me so. She might be the only other person that believes that, Madam Chairman. But thank you.
Thank you, Senator McDougal. Questions?
Madam Chairman, God, I just say this is one of the areas where I think, regardless of party, we all agree. We all agree that our high-performing teachers need to be compensated, and we all agree that if teachers are doing that are high-performing and are in challenging areas and performing high, that they need to be compensated. And I know there's a lot of conversation, and I'm sure, Madam Chairman, other members get calls from reporters wanting to talk about our differences, but this is one of the times where we really, a good example of where we do agree and are working together to try to make something happen. So thank you.
Is there a reporter in the audience? Thank you, Senator McDougal. Questions, responses? Motion?
Move to report.
It's been moved and second that the bill be reported. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. We make our teachers happy.
Okay. Madam Chair, the last bill in this education SOQ funding bill block is Senator Hashmi's Senate Bill 272. Senate Bill 272, as introduced, would have increased the number of instructional positions for English language learners. And based on the JLARC recommendations from the summer, there was a focus on looking at how best to support English language learners. And so this bill would also implement data collection on English language learner expenditures by local school divisions. And it would also look at how to ensure that we have proficiency level data for all the school divisions and all students who are English language learners, so we can best adapt a formula for that.
We have a committee substitute, so
Move we adopt the substitute.
it's been moved and second that the committee substitute be agreed to. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. We got all 4 ayes up here. Okay, now, Tyler, you have other comments about the bill? Okay, the committee substitute has been agreed to. Now I need a motion on the bill. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be reported, and that is Senate Bill 272. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Bill is reported. We have quite a list of names on the sign-up sheet, but Senator Aird, are you there? Oh, yeah, there she is.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, does it matter which two? I have 2 remaining. Sure. I will start then with the spirit of education and do Senate Bill 608.
Okay, we'll have the committee draw your attention to Senate Bill 608.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, members of the committee. Senate Bill 608 is building on the progress that we've made here regarding our piloting of community schools. Madam Chair, the legislation simply requires the Virginia Department of Education to set up an office of community schools as an office within the department so that we would have at least 5 full-time equivalent positions that ultimately will help us expand the community schools model throughout the Commonwealth, ultimately supporting the growth of community schools. Specifically, the office would establish and administer the community school development and implementation planning grants. As you know, the community schools model, it does require significant administrative planning and specific actions to actually get the school or the preferences for how the community school should be structured in place. And so we think that having the support to school boards would be of great assistance. And ultimately, the grants would prioritize the top 33% of public elementary and secondary schools that actually would have a great need for these community schools. And so I understand that this bill has a significant fiscal impact, but I would just say that it's critical that if we want to see the success continue of our community school pilots that are going on right now, that we make this investment so that they can continue to have the support that they need.
Madam Chair,
We have a committee sub, and so I'd like to
I
get,
move the substitute.
it's been moved and seconded that the committee substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye.
Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Ayers,
I'm not aware of the sub, so.
we want the staff attorney to explain to us what the committee substitute.
Madam
Either
Chair,
Wendy.
Madam Chair,
Wendy,
the committee
okay.
substitute would remove the community school coordinator program portion of the bill and the aspirational language for funding prioritization. It would also subject the Office of Community Schools to appropriation. Other than that, the body of the bill is the same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that completes my explanation.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second that the bill be reported. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that is with the committee substitute. So the bill is reported.
I thank the committee. And my
very
final bill, Madam Chair, is Senate Bill 488. This is relative to LRIs.
We have a committee substitute again.
Oh, great.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee substitute be agreed to. All in favor of agreeing to the Senate substitute, please say aye. Aye. Senator Ayers.
I would love to know about the substitute.
Yeah, you're about to learn.
Madam Chair, so what the committee substitute does is it directs the Department of Medical Assistance Services to review all the requirements related to payment to legally responsible individuals for personal care services, to assess all the different options in order to ensure program integrity and ensuring the most appropriate care for the recipients, and then for the department to seek federal guidance on those options and whether federal approval would be granted under the Medicaid waivers, and then specifically includes the 4 provisions of Senator Aird's bill to specifically be reviewed by the department and then to report back to the General Assembly by December 1st, 2024.
Thank you.
You good?
Yep.
And Madam Chair,
Senator
the
Deeds.
report is necessary to figure out what CMS is going to approve. Thank you.
Senator McDougal.
Maybe this is for Mr. Tweedy. How long is CMS is lengthy in their return of an answer to us of these things? How long does that process usually last?
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal. So it really just depends on what the issue is, and typically when they do it, they're just kind of providing advice about whether or not they would think it's consistent with federal law. So it really just depends. I mean, DMAS meets with them frequently for various topics, so they could always consider this as part of that review with them and to get their advice as soon as they could. But it just depends on what the topic is.
And Madam Chair, I would only add, Senator McDougal, that other states have applied to CMS for the very language that we are asking for specifically, and has successfully been granted permission to do so. And so that was our attempt with the legislation to ultimately direct DMAS to go ahead and make that effort to apply. And obviously, if CMS didn't approve, we would have to revert back. But we do know that other states have been successful in doing this.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye. There's a motion that the bill as with the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye.
I thank the committee.
Senator Durant is signed up next.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Senator Durant.
Members of the committee. Senate Bill 4, I think it's, is it 445? Is that correct?
445.
Yeah.
445, yes.
We had a typo on my sheet here. I apologize. But, okay, so Senate Bill 445 is a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding section number 22.1-289.3 relating to veterans and active duty members of the armed forces for teachers credit for service. So this would require each school board to give any veteran or active duty member of the armed forces or the Commonwealth who employs as a teacher in local school division credit for any time served or any such forces in determining such teacher step in the local school division's teacher salary scale. So we heard testimony in the subcommittee that many localities already do this, so including Stafford County in my own district. Currently, school board localities recognize coursework from a regionally accredited college or university as training that is reciprocal across the state but may not recognize experience or coursework taken by a veteran or service member who has similar training. So, currently there's post-secondary education transcripts that are accepted, and joint service transcript is not used to evaluate work experience and determine fair play. And this would give them an opportunity to have the same pay as their counterparts and recognize the military members' experience, training, and leadership. This is really it's a workforce recruitment and retention bill, and just taking a look at the fiscal impact, there is no anticipated state fiscal impact resulting from this. Impact on local school divisions is indeterminate. But as I said, stated previously, I'm speaking with other school districts. They do already employ this. So if that's the case, then hopefully its impact is less for them.
Any questions of the patron?
Madam Chair.
Senator Deeds.
Senator Durant, other school divisions in Virginia already do this?
Yes, in testimony we had in my school division in Stafford County says they already apply this. So, I can't hear from every school division. So, and just trying to keep that cognizant when it comes to that impact on local localities.
So, Madam Chair, this
Senator Deeds.
This bill is permissive. Doesn't require other school divisions to do it. But if your school division's already doing this, why would
it is actually requires them, each school board, to give a veteran or school member.
Okay.
Would you like to hear from the attorney to further explain that?
Madam Chair, the senator is correct. It does say it does require them. It uses the word shall.
What, Madam Chair,
Senator Deeds.
I don't understand, but the notes that we have indicate that it's permissive, and that's why there's no known fiscal impact. These notes are just incorrect.
But Wendy, do you have something you want to add?
Madam Chair, it looks like there was an amendment that changed it from shall to may. Yeah, so that was something in the comments.
Amendment in subcommittee?
Tyler's got it.
You're looking, checking.
Madam Chair.
Tyler?
Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, there was an amendment that reported out from Education and Health that
Oh, my apologies, Madam Chair. They're all running together.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
It is permissive.
It is permissive.
It's,
the bill before you is permissive.
well, Madam Chair, I'm wondering if Stafford County's already doing this and the bill is permissive, what does the bill do that we can't, that localities can't apparently already do?
It just places it in code, but it doesn't change the authority in any way, Senator Deeds.
Well, Madam Chair, I have a motion then.
Senator,
I'd move we carry the bill over and ask the Department of Education to examine what other states are doing and what our own localities are doing, and to figure out what the fiscal impact of this would be, because it could result, or it will result, in higher salaries at some point. Somebody's got to pay that.
Right, yeah, I think it is, as we said before, this is a result of a work group that was from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They did that, and so it's a real workforce recruitment and retention when it comes to teachers in terms of the the work experience they have, some of the coursework they take, but it's not being reciprocal. So if we are going to be incentivizing and retaining them, they're, I guess, in the context that we heard from the results from that study that was done is that they will often have already some coursework that's taken that's not being recognized as from a reciprocal manner. So this will give them that step up credit that they based on what they've already completed. Several schools that participate in the Troops to Teachers program and have the same experience are better than those with traditional teacher program because of that experience and the training and the coursework that they've taken. So it's a reflection of that work group.
Senator McDougal?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I understand what Senator Deeds is saying about if there's the ability to do it, but candidly, this sounds like a great idea. A lot of our school systems, particularly in rural areas, are struggling to find teachers. This gives those areas an additional ability to be able to tap into individuals who have experience and have already demonstrated their commitment to public service through their time in the military. Doesn't require a locality to do anything, and we're fighting with other states for teachers as well. And as we're looking at income levels, I don't know that the concern about raising the baseline for teacher salaries, it's something we're already struggling with in every other place. But incentive for our military veterans to come in and teach seems to me to be a good thing, and it solves some problems potentially we're having with finding teachers in rural areas.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Locke?
Madam Chair, we are already offering reciprocity for folks in the military for teaching licensing, and I agree with Senator Deeds that if school districts are already doing this, the only thing that this does is simply put in code what's already being done. So I will second his motion. I'll second his motion to carry this over.
Madam Chair.
Senator Durant?
Yeah, I guess I just want to qualify. I heard from my district. I have not heard from statewide whether or not they're doing it, but I think it's, I think that now that I'm recollecting, that was a request at the School Board Association that we make this permissive for them. But I do think it is an important framework if we're having a lot of conversations about recruitment and attention, especially, we do have that reciprocity. Of course, Senator Locke is correct about that, particularly with spouses. But if we're trying to incentivize military folks to make maybe a career, once they, separating from the military, from active service, and they want to come in and serve, that there's a framework that we can use to say, we're going to acknowledge and reward your experience, the training you received, as a step up for it. So if there are localities that are not doing so, they should be doing it, and we should be giving them a framework and code to do so.
There is a motion and a second on the floor that the bill be carried over, and Senator Deeds, that was with what parameters did you put around that?
Just ask the Department of Education to examine what other states are doing, examine what other our localities in Virginia are, to see whether we can offer this, or whether we ought to mandate it.
That's the motion and the second. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Record your no. Thank you, Senator Durant.
Thank you very much.
I don't think you have another bill in the committee today.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Senator Hackworth, I see you today. You on the other side of the podium.
I'm very easy to miss. Senate Bill 563.
Turn your attention to Senate Bill 563, Senator Hackworth.
Yes, Madam Chair, we heard this actually earlier this morning in the full committee, Ed and Health Committee. And since then, we have one substitute that we need to move, just one small change. And if we could move the substitute.
Patron sub.
The patron sub. That's his sub.
Yep, if we could move that. Thank you.
What did? Okay. We gotta
Okay,
move
so
move.
all it does is it removes.
We want to move the substitute first. It's been moved and seconded. The substitute be agreed to. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Council.
Madam Chair, the substitute just removes references to children receiving home and school instruction. I think that's the main difference in multiple places.
Any questions? Senator Hackworth?
Yes, so what this does is allows us to get around the table and has the Board of Education in collaboration with the VCCS, Workforce Development, different ones in Planning District 2 to study the feasibility of making the recommendations of establishing a plan for regional and career technical education program. And the plan is to come back by November the 1st and have a robust plan that we can present that would help us with our workforce development and our career-based opportunities for our high school students. And that's what the bill does. There is no physical impact that I know of.
I move the report.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill be reported with the patron substitute.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We got four ayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're
members
welcome,
of the
Senator
committee.
Hackworth. I see Senator Hashmi. You were next on the sign-up list anyway.
Thank you,
Senator
Madam
Hashmi.
Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is SB 231, otherwise known as the Cover All Kids Bill. This bill seeks to ensure that all children in Virginia have access to health care regardless of their documentation status. Roughly 88,000 children in Virginia do not have health care coverage, and Virginia sadly ranks about 25 in the nation for the percentage of children who do not have health care insurance, and we are 11th highest in the total number of uninsured children. And
We do have a committee substitute, so I'd like to move that. It's been moved and seconded that the substitute be agreed to.
Amendment, sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's a committee amendment.
I'm sorry, it is a committee amendment. And so now we have a motion and a second. And so all in favor of that motion say aye. And then we'll have the city attorney Stephen, please respond.
Madam Chair, the amendment just adds a fourth enactment that provides that the provisions of the first, second, and third enactments of the act will be delayed for 2 years, so become effective on January 1st, 2026.
Senator Hashmi.
So the bill itself is focused on making sure that we provide health care coverage for all of our children. And currently, we have a population of children in Virginia with who are undocumented that have an uninsured rate of 48%, and that is simply too high for us. What we know is that children who do not have health care insurance often get delayed treatment for necessary dental care, mental health, as well as critical preventative care services. And they have access to emergency Medicaid, but that means that they have reached a point of critical health care crisis when they are crashing into the system in our hospitals, that is costing Virginia exponentially a greater amount. Covering all children is a step forward for us, and currently 11 states and Washington, D.C. use state-only funds to cover all children in these programs, and Utah became the most recent state to pass a similar legislation and will be creating it in 2024. I hope that we might be able to move this bill forward with a delayed enactment clause and make sure that all of our children receive the necessary care that they so critically need.
Any questions of the patron?
Not the patron. But not,
You have,
I have a question of
Okay.
staff.
Senator McDougal has a question of staff.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Does the delayed enactment clause push this out past this biennium? So meaning it will cost us money in the future, but we're not accounting for any cost over the next 2 years?
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, so it's in fiscal year, it would take effect in the middle of fiscal year 26, which is the second year of this biennial budget. So there would be some cost to prepare for it. And then, of course, some of the benefit costs in the last 6 months of that fiscal year. So there would be some cost. It's just pushed back a little.
Senator McDougal.
Madam Chairman, can you give us, so we see some potential costs now or between, once it's implemented, about $12+ million a year. Are we estimating the same sort of schedule, just delayed, so the first year would be less, approximately half, $3 million, and then $12 million a year after that? Is that fair reading?
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, yeah, definitely the first year amount would be lessened, just depending on what is the timeline to begin implementation. The second year, you would spread some of the first year into the second year. So that's about right. The second year amount would be a couple million less, probably closer to, I would guess, 9 or 10 million.
Senator McDougal.
Thank you.
Senator Deeds.
I move the report as amended.
It's been moved and seconded the bill be reported as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Record your no. Thank you, Senator Harshman. Senator Sudline is signed up next, but I don't see him.
We passed it by.
Okay. Senator Eben, you're signed up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have SB 582, which I believe there's an amendment.
We have a no, this is a substitute, yes.
It's both patron and committee.
You have, one for the patron, one from the committee.
They're the one and the same.
They're one and the same. Okay, so then I need a motion on the committee substitute. B2, Senator Dees. That's all right. It's been moved and second that the committee substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye. Senator Eben.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This legislation builds off existing permitting and licensing processes to ensure the Commonwealth knows exactly who's selling tobacco and liquid nicotine products, and has strict prohibitions against counterfeit products and requires an ID check for people who appear to be under 30. And most importantly, the bill drastically increases the penalties for underage sales of counterfeit products. I don't have a copy of the latest substitute. Maybe council may want to elaborate.
Council can give us an explanation.
Madam Chair, the committee substitute that the patron was in on would continue the age verification requirements and restrictions on the sale of retail tobacco products, which would include liquid nicotine and things like that. It would include ABC compliance checks every 24 months unannounced. There are 3 tiers of penalties of $1,000, $5,000, and a revocation of sales tax certificate exemptions from the Department of Taxation and required education of employees at retail establishments. There are 2 enactments added to the bill The first directs ABC and VDACs to review the provisions of the bill and come up with an implementation plan and recommendations. And then the second asks tax to study liquid nicotine in closed and open systems and propose potential tax rates. Because liquid nicotine, we tax it under the budget currently, and we're going to codify it in previous versions of the bill. That's been removed. The tax will still exist through the budget, but tax is going to work on developing rates and looking at other states and how we deal with open and closed systems.
Senator Eben.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, most importantly, we want to put some real repercussions for those that would knowingly sell liquid nicotine or tobacco to minors and remove any incentive to make it just a cost of doing business to have a minor slap on the hand penalty that's rarely issued, and put some teeth in it.
Senator Deeds or Senator McDougal or Senator Locke, do you have any questions?
Madam Chairman, I followed everything else. I'm not sure I 100% know what we're doing here. So are we leaving the penalties as Senator Eben originally created them? Are they still in the bill, or are we asking ABC and VDACs to come back with a...
My understanding is that they're still in the bill, but I would refer to a counsel for that.
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, that's correct. We removed some of the advertising and marketing components of the bill, but the provisions specific to sales to minors are still intact, and those penalties are the same.
Okay. So, Madam Chairman, so the penalties are around sales to minors?
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, that's correct.
Okay. And Madam...
Senator McDougal.
And Madam Chairman, and then we're asking tax to come back with a suggestion. The closed are the ones that come individual packets, mainly produced in China, and then the open are where you buy a tube and you pour it into your own device that you have. So that's what we're talking about, getting a difference in the tax rates on.
Senator McDougal, that's correct.
Okay.
Senator Eben?
Well, you have the bill. I think it's important that we put some real penalties in place for those that would knowingly sell to minors, and then one of the enactment clauses works on seeing how we can best enforce that.
To the committee for motion? It's been moved and seconded the bill be reported. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Noes, record them if you have them. We're good.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Eben. Up next on the sign-up sheet, and I'm seeing Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have Senate Bill 72 before the committee. And Madam Chair, this is an important bill that we worked on last year from then Senator McClellan, now Congresswoman McClellan, to set up a work group on the information that parents receive. And that work group met and put together the recommendations that are reflected now in this bill. And this is assisting in providing uniform information of assessment data to parents. And parents, as you know, we don't compensate them, but they're probably the most important teacher that we have for our kids, and giving them the tools at their fingertips to be able to connect the dots and understand where their kid, independent of zip code, across the Commonwealth, is struggling. And providing that is, I think, a critical aspect that the work group looked at. There are some existing systems that do occur throughout the state that in various localities, but this would provide a sort of a uniform framework to provide those statewide assessments and put that at the fingertips of the parents so that they can best assist in educating their kids along with teachers.
Senator Deeds.
Madam Chair, Senator Pike, my knowledge, information is that SB 1329 from last year from Senator McClellan and Senator Peterson directed a work group to convene on the criteria and process of the portal, and that report has not yet, a report's never been received from that work group. Is that?
No.
Can you clarify whether we've received?
Madam Chair, we did ask Department of Ed, and we just got the report yesterday regarding that, or 2 days ago. It had been lost in the shuffle.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Deeds. But yes, the report was completed through the work, and I'm glad it's found its way here.
Right. Well, that requires a motion.
That makes it difficult for us to figure it out if we haven't seen the report yet.
That's correct.
I'd move we carry over the bill and see if we can incorporate language in the budget after we've had a chance to look at the report.
Second.
It's been moved and second that the bill be carried over, that is Senate Bill 72. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator McPike. Next on the sign-up sheet is Senator Subramaniam. We already incorporated him, that's right. Let me put a line through that so I don't confuse myself. Next up is Senator Boysko. Going right down the sign-up sheet.
Yes, ma'am. Alrighty, I have,
We have a substitute that we need to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the a substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Senator Boysko.
thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill that has passed through this body in previous years, and
You stay here long enough, you'll see it 12 more times.
I know, paid family and medical leave insurance program. It would establish an 80% employee's wage average, capped at 80% of the average weekly wage, with an exception that if you were an employee of the Commonwealth, you could have your full, if it were a maternity issue, if you worked for the Commonwealth, you could have 4 weeks, 8 weeks of 100% of pay, and then
Just to make sure that
following
we all understand, could I get council or staff to explain this substitute?
Madam Chair, the committee substitute just pushes all the dates in the bill out by a year.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair.
I was going to say something.
Madam Chair, I would just like to clarify, I believe it also excludes public employees, but Mike can confirm that for me.
No. That's not my understanding or intention.
We'll find out from Mike or either David.
Madam Chair, I think it's my understanding this sub does not, still includes public employees.
That is.
Patron sub versus, do we have a patron sub versus a committee sub?
Yeah, which substitute are we working from? I have here the last substitute we have is the one that reflects what staff has just read to us.
Perhaps we should pass this by temporarily, Madam Chair.
We'll
so we
pass
can
this by
clarify.
temporary.
Thank you.
I hope you don't mind waiting just a little bit longer.
You know what? For you, I'll always be happy to
Thank
wait,
you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. You're trying to get this bill passed. Okay, next on the sign-up sheet is Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rome, I'm just checking first to see if there were any amendments to your bill.
Madam Chair, I don't have any amendments specifically to this committee. The amendment we adopted was in transportation.
Correct. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of the subcommittee here. So SB 282 would require that every time that there is a budget surplus, that 10% of that surplus that is not already constitutionally allocated to go to the stormwater fund, to go to the reserve fund, or, well, basically either, or the revenue stabilization fund, would go to the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program. The reason for that is, let's say when we had last year, we had that $3.6 billion surplus. If we had allocated $360 million of that to the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program, the number of major projects that we could use that would, by data, save lives would have been pretty incredible. But Madam Chair, there's a larger problem. When the General Assembly passed the grocery tax cut, we did not make transportation whole. I was the only person who voted against that, in part because we lost 9 digits of transportation revenue from it that we have not fixed. And so the goal with this bill is, what are we going to do to fix that problem, right? And the gas tax right now is a declining source of revenue, especially as we transition more to electronic vehicles. And so question then becomes, what do we do that does not raise taxes, it doesn't gore someone else's ox, and at the same time, we have existing precedent for? And so by drawing this to what we're already doing with the stormwater, with the Water Quality Fund, which you'll see I would point you to line 36 for that, as well as lines 35 for the Revenue Stabilization Fund and line 35 to 36 regarding the Revenue Reserve Fund. By drawing it to that, we're basing it on existing precedent. And Madam Chair, the last two things I'm just mentioning on this is last year, we had 907 deaths on Virginia roadways. The year before that, we had 1,005 deaths on Virginia roadways. The year before that was 968. The last 7 years prior to that were all in the 700s and 800s, which means the last 3 years have been the deadliest 3 years of the last decade. And in fact, the worst we've had since 2007, which was the last time we broached 1,000 fatalities in a single year. And meanwhile, every day in Virginia, not only do 2 to 3 people die on Virginia roadways, but up to 20 people are seriously injured on Virginia roadways. Now, I understand 10% is an ask. That is a significant ask. But even if we just did 1%, that would save lives. And Madam Chair, the final thing on that is I'm carrying this bill not only for the number of pedestrian fatalities and other fatalities we've had in my district. When I was a reporter, I remember having to stand at the intersection in the town of Haymarket, Jefferson and Washington streets, as a mother explained to me why she opted for an open casket funeral for her son, whose face was split open from the nose out after a crash on Log Mill Road when 3 people died on that crash. And that boy was 15 years old. I remember being at the memorial at Battlefield High School for it. And the log mill was terrible. It was never designed for modern transportation. It was always just an old school country road. And we have so many infrastructure upgrades that we have to do to take care and modernize our roadways. This is a way to get that done, and whatever it takes to make sure that we're getting people safely to school, getting people safely from it. I know the priority of this committee is funding education, but just like I say, 100 kid can't lead or can't learn. Neither kid who gets hurt or killed in an accident, or a crash. This is what I'm trying to prevent, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rome. Any questions of Senator Rome? Comments? Senator Locke?
Madam Chair, Senator Rome, doesn't the code already direct general fund revenues and surpluses to transportation?
So, Madam Chair, I would defer to council for the exact explanation on it, but what I will say is that the budget in previous years has allocated money, for example, on the I-64 project, I-64 widening, and we did allocate 9 digits of money from that. So we do have existing precedent for using general fund money for transportation, but we do not have a general fund targeted relief specifically for transportation safety projects, as I understand it.
Let's get some clarification from Staff Attorney Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Senator Locke, you are correct. Currently, 67% of any year-end general fund balance after you do the restricted for rainy day fund, WQIF, or any other committed or assigned balances must be allocated to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, and then that can be used for any transportation-related purpose. And then the remaining remaining 1/3 is for capital outlay expenditures. But this has not been reserved in the past. Or recently, by the current governor.
Other concerns from members of the committee?
I have another question.
Senator Locke has another question.
Madam Chair and Senator Rome, is there anywhere else in the budget that we dedicate surpluses to one specific program?
Madam Chair, I'll defer to council.
Tyler?
Madam Chair, Senator Locke, so you only dedicate surplus to Revenue Stabilization Fund, the Revenue Reserve Fund, and then the Water Quality Improvement Fund. There's 2 components to the Water Quality Improvement Fund, as you know.
Madam Chair, that's annotated in the bill that we have here, because we want to make sure those get funded first, so we're not trying to, again, like gore the ox there. It's the money that would be remaining after that, we would take 10%. But again, 10% is a number I'm willing to adjust as necessary to meet the will of the subcommittee.
Given our education needs, we're going to be down rock bottom by the time we are done. But I'd like to entertain a motion from the committee. Senator McDougal does not like not having a motion on the floor.
I do not.
Senator
So I was
McDougal.
hoping- Madam Chairman, I think Senator Locke stole my question, and that was the part that concerns me. Going to safety is important, but I think I do have some concern about dedicating to a particular program as opposed to just transportation or just water quality improvement fund. So I'm gonna move to PBI.
There's a motion and a second that the bill be passed by indefinitely. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rome, maybe there's a day when we'll have more money, more surplus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Boysko, we may have an answer for you.
No, I think she's asking her to go back for the day.
Okay. Senator Boysko is gone, so I think she left
We,
I think she wants the bill to go by for the day.
so without objection.
So without objection, the bill will go by for the day. I think she wants it to go by. Without objection, the bill will go by for the day. So next on the sign-up sheet,
Got everyone.
I think now we can come to the members of the committee.
I think Stuart wants his to go back. Madam Chair.
Senator Boysko wants your bill to go by for the day. Okay? Did Senator Stewart want his bill to go by for the day?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
He made that request. Can you announce it?
Okay, that's why we made that one an announcement. Where is it? Okay. Senator, and that's Senate Bill 581 will go by for the day. So that Senator Boysko and Senator Stewart's bill will go by for the day. Let's wait and see what. At the request of the patron, Senator Locke would like for Senate Bill 217 to go by for the day.
She can do the other one. She's got 54.
Senator Locke, you have Senate Bill 54?
Yes, I have Senate Bill 54, which has the infamous committee substitute.
Would you adopt the substitute?
Would you like for us to adopt your substitute, Senator Locke?
Yes, if we could, I would move the committee substitute.
It's been moved. My wingmate's gone.
Second.
And second. That the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Senator Locke,
If we could have,
Wendy can describe it.
Wendy, if you'd like to describe that before we go any further.
Yes, Madam Chair, this establishes a unified public-private education system for early childhood care. It also will charge the department with annually providing a report to the chairman of the House Appropriations and Senate Finance Committee on Appropriations and the governor to provide estimates to the general fund cost to maintain the current number of slots for the Virginia Preschool Initiative Program, the Mixed Delivery Program, and the Child Care Subsidy Program, as well as to provide estimates for the increase in the number of slots based on projected growth of demand. In addition, it does establish a fund for the use of these three programs.
perfectly stated. That's it.
All right, we had the substitute. Senator Locke, you ready for a motion?
I move that Senate Bill 54 substitute be reported.
It's been moved that the substitute be reported. Second. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Senator Locke, you have your other one that's gone by for the day, so those are all the bills you have for today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, now we have Senate Bill 1, which is my bill, and I'm going to turn to staff to respond. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, Senate Bill 104 is related to teacher compensation. There's a committee substitute which would direct the governor to include in the next two.
Move the substitute.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Back to Tyler.
Sorry, Madam Chair. The committee substitute that you just adopted directs that the governor to include in his introduced budget bills for the next 2 years salary increases based on the existing code language to maintain competitive salaries with the national average, as calculated by the Department of Education.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to report the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. I didn't hear no, Senator McDougal, so I'm including you.
Madam Chairman, you know me, I've put a lot of stuff out there over time that the more information the public has, the better it is.
He's a yes. Thank you. So the bill will be reported. The substitute will be reported. Tyler, it's been moved and seconded to be reported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now we got Senate Bill 1. And so I'm going to turn to Tyler again, and there's no substitute. So Tyler,
Yes.
take it away.
Madam Chair, this is Senate Bill 1. This is related to the minimum wage, which would increase the minimum wage to $13.50 on January 1st, 2025, and then $15 per hour on January 1st, 2026.
You've heard the presentation. Any questions?
Madam Chairman.
Senator McDougal?
Madam Chairman, so if I'm understanding correctly, the cost in the minimum wage increase really start to go up after year 26. If maybe we could have staff kind of talk about, because I think if we look in the biennium, it's probably around $80-ish million.
That's correct.
And then, but my concern is what are going to be the cost in the out years?
We're going to turn to Mike for the response.
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal. So, essentially the state costs for the minimum wage are, of course, where we have to bring up the salaries or wages of state employees. Those costs certainly grow to some degree over time, as well as the constitutional officers. But the largest cost is basically for Medicaid personal care attendants, because their wages tend to be at or close to the minimum wage. So once you get to the $15 per hour, of course, that's a significant increase. Right now, the lowest rate for that is $13.34 per hour. And then, of course, in the out years, the minimum wage is increasing by an inflation factor. So that, of course, will require ongoing adjustments to personal care rates and Medicaid. And that, of course, increases the cost over time.
Thank you so much. Senator McDougal.
Madam Chairman, so if I'm looking at this correctly, in 26 of the biennium, state share will be about $72 million, and the federal government share of that will be about $84 million, and then that will continue to increase each year going forward. Is that accurate understanding?
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal, that is correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? I'd like to entertain a motion unless there's any. Well, it has been moved and seconded that the minimum wage bill, my Senate Bill number 1, be reported. All in favor say aye. Aye. Report your no. Now, unless I'm mistaken, that pretty much clears up the docket we have at current. So we just will recess for about 10 minutes and we'll be back with you. Thank you.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.